I'm just gonna go real quick, and I wanted to do a video on how I came up with my name, and also this is actually a re-video, seeing that the first one I did was cut after 10 seconds. But anyway, I went about it a couple different ways. I didn't want to pick a name that really was my name, my given name, but yet I wanted it to be where my given name could possibly be a nickname for it. And that being explained is my name that I grew up with, my name that my parents named me, was Joe. So I could have chose just to stay with Joe, but I didn't want to. But anyway, so I wanted to go something that people could use, not that was that if the people who knew me before could still be comfortable with it, but that if anyone ever said Joe, that I could explain it as, oh, that's that's a nickname that they call me for short of my name. So I wanted the name to start with something that started with Joe, or Joe sounding. So I looked up, and I looked at Joseph for a while, and I just didn't really feel like a Joseph. And most people, when they hear Joseph, they usually want to say Joe, or Joey, or something like that anyway, and I really wanted to get away from the Joe. So so what I did was I looked through, and I looked at meanings of names, because to me, the meaning of a name, it has a large connotation on who or what your soul or spirit says about you. And Jonas actually means full of peace, or to bring peace, which the symbol for Jonas is a dove. And then that just fit to a T. That is exactly what me finally being the man that I was raised and grew up to become. Is that now being Jonas is bringing peace to my life. So Jonas was it. And so the other part I did was, for my middle name, and before I even chose Jonas, I don't have a good relationship with my mother, so I had to be very careful on how I asked her the question. So I had tried to get a hold of my sister, and I couldn't get a hold of my sister, because she didn't really know the answer to the question anyway. And so I finally broke down, called my mother, and just happened to have a friend of mine who had just had a baby, and was discussing with my mother how they chose my friend's baby's name. And we were discussing how my brother got his name, and how my sister got her name. And I said, well, if my older sister had been what would you have named her? And they said that they told me the name that they would have named her if she was a boy. And then I said, well, if my brother Michael had been a girl, what would you have named him? And they told me that name, and I said, well, what was my name supposed to be if I would have been born a boy? And she told me the name. The name was James Bradley. Okay, and I said, it's the same name that you said for my sister, the first name, which is my father's name. And I said, well, why, I have a brother, and his name isn't James. And, because I didn't really like the name James, but I was like, I just wondered why. And, so, she said, because your father hated the name James, and he didn't want any of us named James. So I was like, shh. And, I didn't have to worry about not, my father, living up to the respect thing of, at least giving my parents some input. And I said, so the middle name that you would have chose for me would have been Bradley. And she said, yeah, that's your father's favorite name. And I said, well, that's interesting, because I respect my father a lot. And I thought, well, Jonas, James, close. because I had already pretty much set on the Jonas. And so I chose to take Bradley as the middle name. And so that's how I did it. Well, Jonas Bradley. And for all those people out there that have felt the need to ask me, it had nothing to do with the Jonas Brothers. I don't know anything about the Jonas Brothers. Couldn't name one of the Jonas Brothers, and I'm not even really sure how many Jonas Brothers there are. But anyway, Jonas Bradley. That's how I got it. And that's all there is.